Greetings there, ladies and gentlemen. I am James Virgilus, and I am going to do an offhand review. What am I going to be reviewing? I'm going to be reviewing the remake of Secret of Mana. It just recently came out. I just literally finished 100% of the game literally like 20 minutes ago. How does it fare out compared to, I guess, the original and other games like it? Well, I'm going to actually talk about a few things about it. First, I'm going to basically put it out there that I played the original to its completion on the Super Nintendo, and I can't say that I am a total crazed fan of the game, but I do have to say it is probably a good, awesome game on the Super Nintendo. Some people put it on the pedestal as one of the greatest games out there. I am not one of those people. I'm just one of those ones that it is an awesome game on the system. So how does the remake actually fare to the original? Personally, I have to say, pretty damn good. It's literally a graphical and musical upgrade to the original. It may be 3D, but it still has that 2D feel to it. And you want to know something? I'm totally fine with that. The one thing that comes to my mind when I was playing it is that it is literally it feels like the remake of Final Fantasy IV for the DS, which later went on the PC, which is a better version, I have to say. And that's kind of what I got from it. Because in Final Fantasy IV, there was its 3D models on a 3D plane, but it felt very 2D. The camera couldn't rotate at all, and it was pretty much fixed with the camera. Same with this game. You got the 3D models on the 3D backgrounds, and you can't move the camera around. I do have to say the camera is slightly, probably a little closer than the original. That's what it kind of felt like. But other than that, it plays out literally like the Super Nintendo version. Literally. Let's go with sound. Music and sound. Sounds are pretty much the same. May slightly enhanced. The music comes in two flavors. You got your arranged soundtrack, which is the new to the remake, and you got your original soundtrack from the Super Nintendo one. So I have to say, if you don't like the arranged soundtrack, which I have to say it is not the greatest arranged soundtrack I've heard, you can just switch back to the original. That's the thing. Now let's go with gameplay. Is the gameplay the same? Pretty much. It's pretty much the same. What I've actually noticed in the gameplay through this time is that I don't know if it's a bug or if it's a version difference, because in the original North American version, I remember hitting a lot more than I was in the remake. And the thing is, I don't know if that's because of the remake or is it because that the remake might be, well, it probably is a version of the Japanese version, and I've never actually played the Japanese version, so I can't say that because of that. Because back in the Super Nintendo days, it's pretty known that when a game title comes over to North America at that time, they tend to tweak it to make it slightly easier for the North American audience. It happened with Final Fantasy, so I'm assuming it happened with also this. So that's why I'm kind of not saying that, well, I went through the game and like a good maybe 60% of the time that I tried to hit the enemy right in front of me, I literally missed. And I'm not too sure if it's because of that or if it's because of the version differences. But that's one thing that I have to say is that kind of annoyed me. And let's flip the coin on that one. And the thing is that in the original Super Nintendo version, the bosses I found incredibly difficult to actually hit with physical weapons, like the weapons. Instead, I used magic most of the time to defeat bosses, and that's in the Super Nintendo version. In the remake, I've come to realize that you can hit bosses with weapons, and it's actually fairly easier to do so. So I didn't really use a lot of magic fighting bosses, which I have to say is a breath of fresh air. Like, I like using weapons and not magic all the time. It just seems less cheap. And now that's a good segue to go into magic. Well, the magic. In the original Super Nintendo one, there's a nice little, I wouldn't say glitch, but it may exploit into spamming magic. Basically over and over and over again. Let's use the example of freeze, the spell freeze. You can cast freeze, and then immediately after the sprite animation kind of returns back to normal, you can cast it again. And the animation of the actual freeze keeps on going, and then when it happens again, the first freeze hasn't actually finished. So you can keep on spamming that over and over again and get, like, literally kill, like, a thing in one hit. Can you do this in this one, in the remake? Yes and no. There are times where you sometimes can pull it off, but most of the time I found you can't really do that. And I find that to be very refreshing, actually, because, again, I didn't really like the spam magic unless I was magic leveling, basically. That's pretty good. Now let's go on to something that I actually want to talk about is the drop rate. I believe in this one, the drop rate has been increased in the remake because I don't recall the drops being that generous in the original Super Nintendo one, even the North American version. Because, again, I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers. The Pure Land, there are some enemies that drop, missable equipment. And if you're going for that trophy for obtaining all the equipment, it's actually 3 trophies, you're going to have to get on that in the Pure Land to not miss those equipment drops. And I recall in the original, I spent like hours trying to actually get those equipment, where it only took me like literally I think half the time or even a quarter of the time to get those equipment. And I have to say, there must be something in there to basically say, boom, to lessen the grind, basically. And I've noticed that also in the Mana Fortress when I was getting the orbs, that I didn't have to spend like any more than an hour basically getting the orbs, the remaining orbs for the weapons, because I had to, in one of those trophies, it's get all the weapons to level 9. So I do have to say, you have to grind in the Mana Fortress for orbs, and it just seemed a lot easier this time around to get those. So I have to say, that is a good positive thing. All right, now I'm going to go into probably one of the major controversial things in this game, in the remake, the voice acting. Is it good?
Look at the sea! Look at that castle! I can see why it's the pride and joy of Tasnica.
The Republic seems like a nice place to live.
Better than Pandora. I could move here and be free of my father and that stupid engagement nonsense.
So that's why you like it here.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
What do you mean? There's no way I'm marrying that stupid nobleman's son.
That's not what I meant.
Then what did you mean?
Tasnica and Pandora may be allies, but they might not want you here on account of your bad personality.
I'll show you a bad personality.
We've traveled together for this long and you still won't stop fighting?
Personally, for me, it is. I found it to be very enjoyable. Enjoyable, cheesy, even a bit of hammy, but it fit. And that's what I like about it, is it fit the actual atmosphere. And yes, their lips don't move when they speak, mainly the main characters. Does it bother me? Not really. There was plenty of games out there that the characters' lips don't move and voices came out. And you could argue that, yeah, it's a PS4 title. Well, that is correct, or it's a current gen game. Well, I could argue that, yes, it is a current gen game, but it is a remake of a 1993 game. And any other games that have been remade from that era or before, there wasn't really, I have to say, a lot of thought putting into making things like perfect. Like, I believed that a lot of people expected a remake of Secret of Mana be like the remake that they're doing for Final Fantasy VII. I don't really expect that, because the thing is that when I heard about this game, it's like, okay, and then when I saw it, I'm like, well, it's literally a graphical and like musical upgrade to the original. The first thing I thought was Final Fantasy IV for the DS and then the PC, basically. So I was like, okay, well, it's literally like that. And then when I played it, I'm like, it's good. I like it. It's pretty much what I expected, and it was awesome. So, voices or no voices, you can change the voices from English. If you don't like the English voices, you can change it to the Japanese voices. That's the thing. So, I don't know what else I can actually say. But I have to mainly point out that, like, who would actually kind of like this game when it comes down to it? Who would like this game? Would the old fans from the Super Nintendo like this game? I would say yes, but from what I've read in reviews and also seen in reviews, that a lot of the fans don't like this. And I have to say, why? It's literally a game that you played on the Super Nintendo, and that's probably the reason why. It's like, well, if you played the Super Nintendo one, you don't really need to play this one because it's literally almost the same, except with just a little tweaks here and there with voices, and that's about it. And my what I would probably say is, like, why not? Why not? If you found the original one to be good or even like great, why not play the remake? Because the thing is, if you're going to play the original again, like anytime, just play the remake and you'll get the experience of the remake also. That's the thing. Like, if you think a game is great, you're going to play that game again. So if there's a remake of the game, why don't you play the remake and actually get a slightly different experience from that game? So that's pretty much what I keep on, that's what I probably would say, because I found the original one to be very enjoyable. And the thing is, the remake, again, really enjoyable. That is. Now, one other thing I want to get at, and it might just be for this current time when it actually came out, because it literally came out, like, I think, like almost a week ago when I'm recording this, is that there is the game, especially on, I think on the PS4, it tends to crash a lot. Well, not a lot, but as you get further in the game, it tends to crash more than desirable, let's say. Is it annoying? Yes. Yes, it is. Because the thing is, in Secret of Mana, they really didn't do too much to the save system, because you still have to go in and in or go into certain parts of the actual map so you can actually save, like the original for the Super Nintendo. So when it crashes, you have to start the game and then go from one of those points. But there is a upside to this, because you'll be like, oh my god, I lost all this progress. I'm going to have to go back to the last save point I do. This game sucks, basically. But there's an actual remedy to that, and I'm going to get into that. Is that there's an actual autosave. in this. And the autosave is quite frequent because it actually saves your progress with each transition in the screen. So if you go in a cave, boom. If you go into like another scene, boom. If you go into a shop, boom. It saves. So the thing is, if you're going through a palace, one of the mana palaces, and you're like halfway through it and you're going like to an upper floor, and then you're on the upper floor and then it crashes, you're like, oh my god, like I have to go back to the nearest, the last town I saved in. Not really, no. You load up your autosave, not your save, but your autosave, and you literally are on the same floor that the game crashed. But when you entered that floor, saves a lot of aggravation. It really does. And looking on hindsight of that, I actually think they actually incorporated the autosave into it. Like the developers included the autosave because they knew the game would crash like that. It just seemed to make sense because when you're autosaving during transitions, and the game crashes, you're like, oh, damn. And then you realize, well, I just literally come in when I actually did the last transition to it. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So that's why I find the actual crashing of the game not that bad. It's annoying, but not that bad. Okay, and a couple of final words I want to say. Is this game... Okay, so if the old fans, some would like it and some won't. How about someone who hasn't played it? Hasn't played the original and got into this. Would they be interested? I think only if they wanted to play the game on the Super Nintendo to begin with. If they wanted to, if they went back and it's like, I heard of the Secret of Mana game on the Super Nintendo. I'm a big fan of RPGs. I've never played it. I think I'll go play it. I would say, hold off on that. Play the remake. Because one, if you play the original, well, you can play the original. That's good. But if you play the original and then play the remake, it's like literally the same. You'll feel the same. That's the thing. For people who have not played the game. So if you have not played the game, I would say play the remake. If you have played the original, I would say still play the remake. And even if you haven't played the original one on the Super Nintendo, I would say play the one on the Super Nintendo also, but also play the remake. So the thing is, the remake, when it comes down to it, play the remake. Play it. And the thing is, with my personal opinion, I definitely like it. Because one, it shows that there could be more like it. Like everyone wants Square Enix to bring out Chrono Trigger again. To remake Chrono Trigger. Well, how about if they make Chrono Trigger like the remake of Secret of Mana? I know that a lot of people would be incredibly pissed off. Be like, why the hell wouldn't you just do a proper 3D remake? I'm like, well, if I had a Chrono Trigger that looked like the remake of Secret of Mana, I would definitely play it. Like hell, I would be like on that, no problem. So this is the thing, is that I see potential in this game for future games that were on the Super Nintendo that could come into the current time, like Chrono Trigger. And that would be awesome. That would be more than awesome. That would be beautifully awesome. And for my wish list, oh my god, I would love for them to bring ActRaiser and the Quintet trilogy into, like, for PS4, and do it in the same style of the remake of Secret of Mana, or maybe a tweak style. Like, maybe like it, but maybe tweak it a little bit. That would be awesome, because one, ActRaiser would be awesome just by itself. Like, you need very little voice acting, because there's not a lot of voice acting interaction in it. For Soul Blazer, I think voice acting would be phenomenal in that game, because there's a lot of interesting characters in it. Beautiful. Illusion of Gaia the same way. my god, the voice, like I get tingles and like beautiful stuff from the original game. How you brought voice acting into it and like tweaked the score. It would blow my mind. And then finally, they could finally bring Terranigma over to North America. Because we never actually got it over in North America. They got it in Europe, but they didn't bring it over in North America. So Terranigma could actually be brought over to North America for the first time. I'm for that. And guess what? What if they did ActRaiser, and maybe even ActRaiser 2, but not as much, but ActRaiser, Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma all as a collection on one disc? Because I'm pretty sure they could. Because Secret of Mana, the remake, is only like 5 gigabytes, I believe. Yeah, it's only like 5 gigabytes. A Blu-ray could be have a hell of a lot more on it. So you could fit like 4 games easily on one Blu-ray. Have like a quintet collection. That would be excellent. This is what I see when I play this remake of Secret of Mana. Potential. And the thing is, if this doesn't do well, then a lot of those other games probably will not come into the current gen. Because Secret of Mana, the remake, doesn't have problems? A few, but I guess in this day and age can be fixed with patches. Like the crashing bug will probably be eventually fixed. Will probably most likely. But even so, I completed the game 100%, and it literally only crashed 13 times on me. 13 times, yeah, it's a little more than I expected, but still, I completed 100%, got all the trophies, and I still had a blast playing it. And that's all I have to say. So I would say I would definitely give Secret of Mana you gotta play it. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you possibly in the next thing I do. So I'm not too sure what that is, but until then, stay well and farewell.